With that, it's 6:01. I'll call meeting to order of Beaumont City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, here in City Council chambers. And we begin with our land acknowledgement, as we always do. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples and of this land, whether it be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect, honor the treaty, and rights of the people and the land. We have one proclamation this evening. Wear Red Canada Day, February 13th, 2025. Whereas heart disease is the #1 killer of women worldwide and leading cause of premature death for Canadian women, a fact unknown to many women and their healthcare providers. And whereas the Canadian Women's Heart Health Alliance is an organization of volunteer health professionals and patients working hard to improve women's heart health. And whereas Wear Red Canada Day is celebrated annually to raise awareness for all Canadians, but especially Canadian women, to be mindful, curious, and proactive in the management of their heart health and wellness. And whereas we all want to see better prevention, diagnosis, and care for fewer women dying prematurely from heart disease, now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Danyluk, do hereby proclaim February 13, 2025 as Wear Red Canada Day, City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated February 11th, 2025. And as you can see, members in the audience and people from home, we are wearing red as best we can, members of council. It's kind of hard wearing red sometimes, but we did ban Calgary Flames jerseys from the room. That's just crazy talk. You can't have that. So I do appreciate council wearing red, and administration wore red today, those that wanted to, in recognition of the Wear Red Canada Day here in Canada, of course. And with that, Councilwoman Gough-Swain is on vacation. Councilwoman Cook is joining us remotely from home. She's online. So we have 6 people attending council this evening. So just procedurally, if we have a vote and the vote is tied, the motion is defeated. That's standard procedure, so just letting you know, and anybody listening at home, a 3-3 vote defeats a motion. All right, with that, move on to the adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, any changes to our agenda this evening? I got you.
Thank you, Mayor. Administration does not have any additions or deletions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Member of Council willing to move the adoption of the agenda as presented? Councillor Barnhart, would you make that motion when it's on the screen, please?
Certainly, Mayor. I move that.
Oh, hang on. Pardon me.
That the February 11th, 2025 council agenda be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, 1 second. My computer just popped up. I may have the voting ability restored. Give me 1 second to see if I got it going. All right. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, would you please vote on the motion to adopt the agenda? Oh, hang on, it's not letting me vote electronically. Sorry. I'll take a vote by hands. Councillor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Council members, how do you vote? In favor? Thank you. That carries unanimously. I'm just going to try and get my computer hooked up here quickly. Thank you. I'll let my computer do its work. Next on the agenda is open forum. Madam Clerk, any open forum guests registered by noon today?
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have any open forum presentations this evening.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is consent agenda. Would you please put the consent agenda on the screen, Madam Clerk? Are any changes to consent agenda from any members of council? Councilor Telebus, you have a... Yep. Nathan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just asked that 7.1 be removed.
7.1. Thank you. Any further changes to the consent agenda from members of council? Seeing none, Councilor Telebus, would you make the motion for the consent agenda, please?
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. 5.1, Regional Council meeting minutes, January 28, 2025. 7.2, Q4 2024 Council Strategic Plan Update. And 12.1, Public Member Appointment Youth Committee.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion, members of council? Seeing none, my computer is not cooperating. We'll continue with the visual vote as we need to. At this point, council, would you please vote? All those in favor of the motion? 5 of us here. Councilor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor. The motion carries unanimously, 6-0 in favor of the adjusted consent agenda. All right, moving on to our agenda then is Madam Clerk, in registered presentation this evening. I'm not aware of any.
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have any registered presentations this evening.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is item 7.1. So that is taken off consent agenda. Mr. Bohajek, are you going to be presenting on the item? You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Administration is here today to seek approval of the endorsement of the carry forwards of 2025 capital or projects into the, 2024 project budgets into the 2025 capital budget. Normally, at this point, under future circumstances, we will be doing multi-year approvals for projects, so we're not having a problem where we could stop mid-project. So this is prior to the audit being done and year-end financials being locked down, where we have firm numbers of what our expenditures and such were for 2024. This is the endorsement of the continuation of these projects. So we're just seeking that we can continue in good faith working on these projects and that there isn't an authority issue from an MGA alignment perspective. And so it's a little irregular, this process, and we won't do it again like this in future budgets. We'll budget multi-year authority in place. And so this is just an endorsement request.
Thank you, Mr. Paycheck. Appreciate that. Councilman Telebus, do you have any questions at this point? I believe you probably would have. You have the floor, Nathan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate that. Thank you for that information. So my understanding of what you had shared is we won't see this path forward. But I guess a request that I have is just clarifying or providing a little more detail. I would be curious to know what the actual spend is, our actual progress, and the reason for the delay or the request for the carry forward. So I guess what I'm asking for down the road would be, and hopefully it doesn't come down the road, but is that clarification with those 3 requirements?
Councilor Tellenboss, so under normal circumstances, we would have clear audit numbers and financial close, but due to the personnel challenges of last year, we are a little bit behind schedule as far as year end. So normally we would have actual numbers and spends. We will be coming back in the spring update, and we will give those formal updates, so you will get that visibility into it at that time. I just don't have it right now, but I wanted to, in good faith, continue the projects so that we were in line from an authority perspective.
Appreciate that. Thank you. So I guess just a question for administration. Do I require a council inquiry just to request exactly what has been suggested? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Newkirk, Stephen, you have the floor.
Looks like I'm red now.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Just echo the sentiments of Councillor Tellenboss around a little bit more information around that. So I appreciate that from administration. Dollars and spend aside, one suggestion I would have on the table that's there is if we added a column to the right that said like % project complete, that might even just provide enough guidance for council and members of public to understand, are we 5% or 95% or 50% along the way? So anyways, thank you for dealing or being open-minded on this conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further comments on this item, would you please, Madam Clerk, put the motion forward to accept the report as information or be approved, as I believe the wording of the motion is. I'll move that the endorsement of the continuation of the 2024 carry forward projects as set out in attachment 1 in the February 11, 2025 report, 2025 carry forward of 2024 project budgets be approved. Discussion on the motion from members of council. Seeing none, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor of the motion? Councillor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously, Council, 6-0. At this time, I'm going to take a 5-minute administrative recess. My computer is almost ready to go. I need one little thing from Jason to make this perfect, and we'll be recessed for 5 minutes, please. Thank you. Sorry, everybody. I got a new laptop last week, and for some reason, it's not letting me connect to the internet. I don't know why. So it's asking for a network. We're live after administrative break. My computer's not being cooperative. We're going to continue going with the manual votes as we need to. I apologize, Council, for a miscue in my system there, but unavoidable. So we're going to continue with the meeting this evening. Next on our agenda is Bylaw 8.1, Bylaw 1064-25, Rousseau Land Use Bylaw Amendment, first reading. Mr. Wong, I believe you're presenting, or Ms. Kohlenbacher? So close. Thank you. Let me just give you your microphone here. Okay, your microphone is on. Please begin when you're ready, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brenda Kohlenbrander, and I am representing Long Range Planning to present Bylaw 1064-25, the Rousseau Neighborhood Land Use Bylaw Amending Bylaw. Joining me tonight is Johannes Wong, Manager of Long Range Planning. We're here this evening to present a redistricting application, and I see the location map up on the screen there in the Rousseau neighborhood. So this is a 0.8 hectare portion of a piece of property that's left to be subdivided in the Rousseau neighborhood. And the application is proposing to redistrict from conventional neighborhood or CN district to integrated neighborhood or IN district. The subject site is located south of 46th Avenue, west of 66th Street, and east of Range Road 243, as shown on the screen. The purpose of this redistricting is to accommodate a narrower townhouse product than what would be permitted under the current CN district. So under the existing CN land use district, the minimum lot width is 9 meters. So just to provide a little bit of background on the different residential districts within the Beaumont land use bylaw, there are 3 different land use districts that regulate residential development. So the CN district is intended to provide opportunities for lower density housing forms generally in more established areas. So it provides some flexibility in housing form, and it does permit townhouse development, but the primary form that you would see in the CN district is single-family residential development. The IN district offers a little bit more flexibility compared to the CN district and is primarily intended for greenfield areas. So a key difference between the IN and CN district is that the IN district requires a minimum of 40% of the developable area to be rear lane products, meaning this district would generally see a little bit less of the front attached garage houses and more laneway houses and townhouses with rear lane access. And then finally, the mature neighborhood district, the MN district, is intended for intensification and new uses in downtown Beaumont. So that district applies specifically to Centreville area. So going back to this application, the subject site is designated for low and medium density residential uses in the Rousseau outline plan. So an outline plan amendment is not required. Surrounding land uses include low density residential and land being cleared for future low density residential development to the north, east, and south. And there's an agricultural property just west of Range Road 243. There's also a school site just southeast of this subject site. So this application was circulated from November to December 2024. This included circulation to the public, external agencies, and internal departments. Due to the mail strike, this application was advertised via sort of general newspaper advertisements directing residents to our website. The application was posted to the Planning and Development Notifications page with more information on the application and provided a deadline of December 20th for feedback. During circulation, the engineering department requested a servicing memo. The applicant provided this memo, which showed no impacts to servicing capacity as a result of this proposal. No other concerns were identified by the public, external agencies, or internal departments. Administration recommends that bylaw 1064-25 be given first reading by council. The proposal aligns with the Russo outline plan development concept and is proposed in an area that is still largely undeveloped. The CN district does not prohibit townhouse development, so the request is essentially that reduction from the 6 meters to the 4.9 meter minimum lot width. This is considered minimal, as the housing form generally would be the same for CN district and IN district. Therefore, administration believes that the neighborhood character impacts would be quite minimal. This redistricting site also would allow for that narrow townhouse development, which supports a little bit more variety in the Russo neighborhood. If council gives first reading to this bylaw, administration will proceed with the next steps, which would include scheduling a public hearing. That concludes my presentation. Administration is available to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Ms. Colin-Brander. Appreciate that. So, council, I will move first reading and then entertain questions for clarification from members of council before we go to first reading vote. So with that, Madam Clerk, would you please put first reading motion on the screen? And I'll move that, and then we'll open up to questions from members of council. So I will move that first reading 5, Rousseau Neighborhood Redistricting, a bylaw to amend bylaw 944-19, our zoning blueprint land use bylaw, be approved. With that, I'll open to members of council for questions. Councilor Telebus, you have the floor first. Nathan?
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. I guess a quick question to administration. Is the applicant present for questions?
They will be available at the public hearing if the bylaw proceeds to that stage.
Okay, perfect. I have a little concern with that. I mean, I appreciate that we enter this with a clean slate, and we're here to ask questions and get answers to some of the questions we have. But if the applicant's not present, I find it hard to push forward the first reading. So I'm just wondering if there's a good reason as to why the applicant isn't present.
Madam Clerk, do you want to maybe answer a procedural question? I believe first reading is just open for questions from clarification, and public hearing is when applicants are
Thank you,
normally
Mayor.
speaking. Can you please clarify our
Thank you, Mayor.
procedure, please?
That is correct. Procedurally, typically, the first reading is just the introduction of the bylaw, giving council basically the amendments that are coming forward for the land use bylaw, and the applicant typically would be available coming to the public hearing to answer those questions that council would have. If there was any type of amendment that would need to be made, then that could be made after the public hearing closed, if council so desired.
Thank you, Ms. Winter. I appreciate that. But my concern is, aside from what has been proposed from administration, I just don't fully understand the reasoning behind this. So to bring it to the next step without being able to question the applicant makes me it causes me a little bit of trouble to push it to the next step if I'm not able to get answers to my questions directly from the applicant. So
Mayor,
that's...
if I may,
Madam Clerk?
would it be possible that Councillor Natellenbosch could ask the questions to administration, as administration may have the answers to those questions with the applicant not being here? I know administration works really hard with the applicant when the applications do come through, so they may be able to answer some of those questions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That's our standard procedure. So with that, Councilor Telebus, I appreciate your concern, but our procedure is the applicant is welcome to come at the public hearing and the second reading to answer any questions or make a presentation at second reading to council. So in the meantime, I'll ask you to answer any questions you may have, administration. They'll answer what they can, and what they can answer, we'll make sure we have the questions available at second reading after the public hearing. Councilor Telebus, you have the floor for questions if you wish to proceed.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I guess on behalf of the applicant, if administration is able to answer, what is the main reason to significantly reduce the lot size from potentially the 6 meters to the 4.9 meters?
Mr. Wong, are you able to?
Best, because that is the we can restate the purpose of the application. The applicant included the rationale of the application is to allow for narrower townhomes developments because the CN district allows a minimum of 6 meters, and IN district will allow for 4.9 minimum. And and also I want to say that is the minimum number. It doesn't mean that everything has to be 4.9. It is the minimum that they can go. So, and with the reduction from 6 meters to 4.9, they may be able to have a couple more lots, in that block, and they are only talking about one block of the neighborhood. So it is not the entire Rousseau neighborhood. It is that one block. So they can have multi-unit townhomes. Usually what we have probably they can go up to 4plex. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wong.
So I guess,
Councilor Tellenbus?
thank you. In continuation with that question, again, on behalf of on behalf of the applicant from administration, what would be the average lot size you would expect to put forward in this development?
At this point, we cannot speculate because we don't have the subdivision application. Yeah.
And
Yes.
so again, I
the
find
planning
this.
process is once they have the rezoning, then it will go to they will have a subdivisions, and the subdivision will get circulated and will be approved or considered by the subdivision authority at the time. And with the subdivision applications, the applicant must follow the land use bylaw regulation, which is they have to meet like the minimum lot line. So every lot that they created in this block has to have a minimum of 4.9 meters, and everything else that is that meets the requirement. For example, the landscaping requirements, setbacks, those things. So otherwise, subdivision authority won't consider this.
So, Mr. Wong, I do appreciate your answers, but I don't feel I'm getting the answers I need. What I'm being told is it could be 4.9. I don't know the intent of the applicant at this point in time, aside from putting more houses in a given spot, and I struggle with that. So I'll leave it at that because I don't feel like I'm getting the answers that I need to push this on to the next step. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I appreciate that. Councillor Newkirk. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think my question was answered by Mr. Wong because the question I was going to ask was, do we know what the change in lot width would mean to the number of lots in that parcel? But I believe I heard the answer is we don't know yet because the subdivision detail has not been brought forward. Is that correct?
In a sense, yes, but I just want to do a rough calculation. Do we know the block length? That block?
We'll try and find the information, Steve.
Yeah, because we can divide that block length, it is 100 meters. And if divided by 6 meter minimum, right, then how many lots they can create. But if it is divided by 4.9, then that is the maximum number of lots that they will be added to that block.
For sure, yeah.
But
And I was going to do that
but I
math
don't have
too.
that
I just
number
couldn't
with
see
me.
the width. So anyways, I appreciate the effort, but, that's fine. I'll reserve that question for, when we get to the applicant stage.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod, you have the floor. Oh, hang on. Mic's on.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. I'm just finding my question here again quick. There was a phrase right at the end of the administrative report. First of all, thanks, Ms. Kohlenbrander, for your presentation this evening. There's just some language that I would like some clarification on the report presented. 1 second. Just wondered if you could, it comes across as kind of technical. Just wondered if you could state it a bit more plainly for me. I'm feeling thick today. Right at the end of your report, the applicant provided a memo demonstrating that there would be no impacts to servicing capacity as a result of this proposal. So it speaks of the engineering department requested a brief servicing memo. As I understand it, that's part of the internal opportunity for different departments in our organization to feed back on potential issues with this proposal or benefits, receive all kind of feedback on it. Could you just give that to me in a little more plain language? Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Kohlenbrander?
Sure, thank you. through the mayor to Councillor Penrod. Yes, so the request for a servicing memo came from the engineering department through the internal circulation process. Typically, that's something that would be requested at subdivision, but in this instance, they asked for just sort of a quick memo to show that servicing capacity basically wouldn't change or wouldn't be negatively impacted by the increase in potential number of lots.
And just for absolute clarity, when we're talking about servicing capacity, what services are we talking about?
Water, sewer, I think so, and storm.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that administration has heard concerns in the past that council has brought forward on behalf of citizens, or citizens have presented themselves at past public hearings, and has kind of proactively said, let's make sure that we're speaking to that concern here. So I'm getting a fairly clear answer that there's no concerns that additional units in this acreage or in this area will strain the existing services for water, sewer, storm sewer. Thank you. And my other question was already addressed by Councillor Van Newkirk. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick clarification, and perhaps this will come up if this moves to second reading in the public hearing. But do we know if everyone received, given that there...
I will do my best to answer this question, Councillor McCook. Because of the postal strike, we would not be able to distribute the circulation letter to the property owners. So, and that is why we just post the application details on our website. And also we put advertising in the newspaper mentioning that there are this new application coming in, and direct the residents to go to the website to get some details, including reading the circulation letter to them. And in that, we may reach a much larger audience than we usually do, because when normally we just circulate it to the property owners within 100 meters of the application area. But in this case, the whole city would receive that notification through the newspaper, and everybody within the city would be able to take a read on the circulation letter. But there is, we didn't receive any phone calls or comments as a result of that notification circulation. So I don't know if how many people read the that notification, the newspaper ad, but that is what we have. But having said that, if this application is going to public hearing, now the Postal Service is resumed, there will be a public notice. We'll be sending it to property owners to let them aware there will be a public hearing on the date that is coming to council.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Kat, follow-up, or you're good?
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Yeah, I just think I wanted to clarify that, and I just wanted to clarify whether there was a specific timeline that we had to follow, or if we could push it. I think with the addition of them getting the public notice for the public hearing, that makes me a little bit more comfortable. I just wanted to ensure that, you know, the adjacent property owners, you know, in our next presentation, we will see that not everyone gets the paper, unfortunately, due to third party that delivers. So while I appreciate administration's effort to get that information out, it may not have reached the people that it needed to reach, but hopefully now with the public notice for the public hearing, it will reach those people. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart, you have the floor, Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question at this point. Mr. Wong, I'll get the name, Ms. Collenbrander. Could you just tell me if there's a difference in terms of the height regulations between those two districts and what they might be in the integrated neighborhood district?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Barnhart. Yes, I do have those numbers. So it goes by stories, I believe, rather than meters. So the IN district would allow up to 4 stories, and the CN district allows 2.5 stories.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further questions, members of council? Your mic was on. Is it off now?
Just a final note to speak tonight.
If you have a question or it's a final comment?
Final comment.
Okay. Just mindful it's first reading, so be careful of comments, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I would like to thank Councillor Barnhart for that question, because obviously it's important to ask that question. And again, without the applicant present, we're not able to ask what the intent is, and I struggle with that. So as always, I enter all of these readings without bias and with a blank slate mindset, but I need to base my decisions off of some sort of source of truth. And with it coming third party, unfortunately, I don't feel that my answers were adequately answered, so I would not feel comfortable moving this to the next reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Seeing no further members of council having any comments or questions at this time, I will ask council to vote on the first reading of the bylaw motion I made a few minutes ago. With that, all in favor of the motion for first reading? Councillor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. Opposition? Councillor Telebas, thank you. The motion carries 5-1 in favor. Councillor Telebas in opposition on first reading. Thank you, council. Thank you, administration, for your presentation. Next on our agenda is item 8.2, bylaw 10. Let me find your microphone here. Yep, it's already on. Good. Thank you. Please proceed when you're ready.
Good evening, Public Notification Bylaw 1067-25 for first reading, and as also the public engagement results conducted as part of this preparation for the bylaw. Under the MGA, the province requires that certain municipalities advertise bylaws, resolutions, public hearings, and other related matters in certain steps. And the steps are outlined on the slide, saying that we must publish at least once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in at least 1 newspaper, mailed or delivered to every resident in the area to which the item relates, or given by a method provided for it in a bylaw. So currently, the city has a public notification bylaw, 918-18, I believe. My eyes are not very clear. And this bylaw is currently operational. However, there is some ambiguous language that administration flagged as needing greater clarity. So if on the next slide, I will speak a little bit further to this, but the new proposed bylaw will add that clarity and also selects one channel as the main source where residents can expect notifications to come out and the timing of it. The reduced cost is also a reason why the bylaw is being updated, and I will speak a little bit more towards that. In addition to the MGA, the Local Authorities Election Act also allows a bylaw to be created that alters the notification timelines and the requirements for advanced voting notification dates, as well as nomination period dates. So in 1067-25, we've also incorporated that into the bylaw to account for these changes that we wish to propose. So in this slide, this is a comparison between the old and the new bylaw. 918 currently has language that doesn't quite allow the resident to understand where they can expect the notification to be, and that is indicated by the and or. So this is more of a housekeeping item that administration has flagged, and so the new bylaw proposes that the city must provide notice 10 business days in advance of the meeting or event occurring on the city website and the local newspaper So first off, the city newspaper becomes the official source, and the newspaper is also still utilized. You'll notice it says, if applicable. That is because the city doesn't have any control of whether a newspaper is in operation. So if a newspaper is no longer in operation, we would have to then change the bylaw. So language is inserted that if a newspaper is no longer if a newspaper is no longer in operation, the requirement to publish in a local newspaper will no longer apply. The timing is essentially the same as well. You'll see that it's 10 business days in the new bylaw, and the last one was the current bylaw, 918, is once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. By transitioning to 10 business days, this accounts for any holidays and gives administration a little bit more time to account for timings that the newspaper has. The city may also utilize additional mediums in the new bylaw. So this would be social media, posters, or whichever is operationally feasible. The city continues to go beyond the minimum, but currently the minimum would be the city website and the local newspaper. As part of preparation of this bylaw, the city conducted a bunch of conducted a public engagement through a survey. The survey occurred last fall, and it was advertised through a number of mediums, including the website, social media, in-person engagement. So we had staff who went to the BSRC in the Ken Nickel to advertise this survey and encouraged residents to submit their feedback. We targeted residents in general, but we also wanted to target those who may not currently use the mediums that the city is currently advertising on. So if residents, for example, didn't use Facebook and Facebook was the only medium, we wanted to also encapsulate those who weren't using Facebook. Our goal was to understand how residents currently receive and wish to receive information and updates on council meeting resolutions, public hearings, and bylaws. From the results, we had about 256 survey responses, of which 46% of these respondents said that they stayed informed on council matters. And so council matters are referring back to everything in the previous slide, which is meetings, resolution, public hearing, bylaws, and election-related matters. So that would be, in particular for this bylaw, advance voting and election day and nomination period. The residents who were not informed or did not actively stay informed listed some of the following reasons. They were unsure where to find information. This was our top response. There was inadequate notice or timing for these notifications or events. Information was either unclear, and then the last one being they have no interest or time to stay updated. The channels that were most utilized in staying updated with council-related matters were the city website. We saw this one about a good, I believe, 30% of people. I will have to double check the numbers, but this was our most utilized medium. The official Beaumont Facebook page, and then the local newspaper. So from our results, the newspaper was actually quite, it was brought up quite a bit, and it kind of goes to show that residents still utilize newspaper as a source of information, even during a time of technology and improvements and trends in digital content consumption. Potential communication channels that were listed that are not currently utilized by the city would be email. So this was a quite frequently mentioned response. And then Canada Post mailers. This one is the last one, Canada Post mailers, is a bit of a concern for for using it as an official source, because if Canada Post ever goes on strike, then the city would have to fulfill its requirement to deliver Canada Post, which would be unable to be done if there were a strike. So this was not considered. Overall satisfaction on the current communication channel methods resembles that of a bell curve. So this is a normal distribution. We asked residents how satisfied they were, and this is a representation on the right of the slide. It's a little bit small. You'll notice that the representation shows that the neutral feedback is the most common response, with equal parts satisfied and dissatisfied responses. So 24% of residents are satisfied or very dissatisfied with the current communication channels. The theme here being that they are satisfied with information being very accessible. So examples of the responses being, I'm very satisfied, I can stay informed, I have many options to be informed. Now the bulk of the responses were either neutral or not engaged. So 40% were neutral, 7% no engagement, and that's because they have no interest in staying involved or engaged with council-related matters. Examples of this would be, I'm not really engaged in it, so I'm neutral on the subject, or I'm not overly concerned either way. I trust the elected officials to act in our best interest. Now, 29% of residents responded that they're either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. There are about 5 common themes that administration was able to identify. The first one being there's a need for proactive and direct communication. So this is kind of related back to like the email or text notifications. So I don't know where to get information. I'd rather the information come to me, or if I don't go look for it, it's not readily available. So residents are indicating that they would like to see a little bit more direct communications. The second theme here would be a better use of traditional media. So this would be in reference to the newspaper. Examples of comments given were that newspaper wasn't always delivered on time, or they don't get it at all. So unfortunately, the city doesn't have any control as to the delivery of the newspaper. The city would encourage any resident who doesn't currently receive the newspaper to connect with the newspaper. But this feedback also goes to show that residents still utilize and wish to utilize the newspapers to stay informed. Our third theme would be over-reliance on social media. So one comment is, if you don't live on Facebook, you don't find out anything. I'm not much of for social media, and that seems to be the only way anything is communicated. Administration does recognize that not everyone uses social media, so social media should not necessarily be our main channel for communication to residents, as it excludes those non-users or those users who don't use that particular platform. Our fourth theme is frustration with timeliness. So often residents have indicated they don't see notifications, or they see it after the event. One comment is, I keep missing things like the annexing and the 50 kilometers north of town. So the city has a recommendation that we will be implementing that I will address a little bit later. Lack of details and updates is the last one. So some residents find that council meetings are hard to follow along with. One comment is, could be more transparency around council matters. I will also address a little bit further as to how administration plans to address this. So the 3 main channels, as mentioned earlier, are website, social media, and newspaper that residents currently use to stay informed. The website being the most utilized communication channel. Administration believes that this is the best medium as it is a city asset. This gives the city the ability to, it gives the city flexibility and the ability to change or make updates to the notification. And it's also a centralized source where residents already currently go to the website to do things like booking swimming lessons or looking up how to pay their utility bill or transit. So by centralizing all the notifications in one channel, residents can come to expect that there will be a notification here and this is where I go. Social media is the second most utilized communication channel. As mentioned earlier, though, this does not encapsulate non-users who do not use it, or that trends in platform consumption may change over time. So there is a little bit more of risk that the city would take if the city decides to use social media as the main communication channel. The newspaper is the third most utilized channel. As mentioned earlier, there is no guaranteed delivery to all residents for a newspaper. Technology and media consumptions may change as well. And currently, one of the let me rephrase this. The newspaper currently has a cost for advertising. So currently, if we put all the details that need to be required in a newspaper, that takes up more space, and thus advertisement costs increase. Through transitioning the channel to a city website, for example, there's a potential that advertisement costs may be reduced, as a notice can still be put out in the newspaper, but it could direct the residents to the website, and thus costs may be reduced. So moving forward, the website will become the official advertisement channel. Social media will still continue to be utilized. We currently do not use Instagram as much for council-related matters, but this will be a change going forward that we will be adding, for example, notification of an upcoming council meeting to the Instagram page. Administration will also add council agenda items to Facebook posts. So this would be a bullet point or a way that residents can easily see what's coming up on the agenda for that meeting. And then lastly, the city will be reviewing our social media pages to see if there's any improvements that can be made. The newspaper will also continue to be utilized in providing notice, as we see that residents utilize the newspaper to stay informed. Administration is also aware that there is a newspaper representative attending our council meetings, and thus there may be more information being disseminated to the residents. Additional channels that the city would potentially explore would be a city app, see whether that is feasible. That would be in terms of addressing that desire from the residents to see more direct communication, and also with email and text alerts that would also address the direct communication aspect. So going forward, administration has identified under the MGA that there are some requirements that must be made before proceeding, so that proceeding with the bylaw being given 3 readings. Council must be satisfied that the notification methods will effectively reach a substantial portion of the relevant residents. A statutory notice of bylaw 1067-25 must be given, and a public hearing must be held. Administration will be posting a notice under the current bylaw, so that would be once a week for 2 consecutive weeks, and then a public hearing will be scheduled for March 25. Afterwards, the second and third reading can be considered. And that concludes my presentation for today. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cueva. Appreciate that. So I will move first reading, and then I'll move to questions from members of council. So would you please, Madam Clerk, and open the floor to questions thereafter. I'll move that bylaw 1067-25, a bylaw to replace bylaw 918-18, public notification bylaw, be given first reading. With that, members of council, open up the floor to questions. Councillor Van Newkirk, you have the floor first, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of data in that report, and I guess that's on purpose because we're asking people what they think. The first comment I have is that I really appreciate the inclusion of the raw data from the survey. I know in surveys past, sometimes we haven't had that, but I really think it's important for folks who are interested to see what others had to say, to dig into the, 30 to 105 comments that are listed below some of the graphs in the report. So, there is some constructive feedback in there, and all that was gathered up and presented back quite nicely. One of the pieces on the second last slide that I have interest in is on the public notification channel section, is just exploring the feasibility of an email, like an opt-in email. And I've thought that for quite some time, and I'm happy to see that idea, potentially explored as part of this. Mayor, those are my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I agree with you. I think the email notification, we can make that work. Do a social media post, and then it's available by email. Those people who subscribe to it, it would be a great idea, and I'm glad it's part of the report as well. As you mentioned, Steve, thank you. I have Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Nantalambas. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mary. Councilor Van Newkirk kind of touched on it. Yeah, I've often talked about the app or the ability to make an email list. Do you know, I know you guys said that you are looking to possibly explore that. Do you know kind of where we're at with that? Is it just very early stages? Is that something that we could look at sooner rather than later? Or?
I think Mr. Berenzowski wants to comment on that. Mike, did you want to jump on that question for an answer? Let me find out. Hang on. Your microphone's on, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor Daniluk. Through you to Councillor McCook. It's still early stages. We've had some initial conversations with my colleague in corporate analytics and technology. At this stage, what we're doing is sourcing out scoping out the project and looking at the different business cases that or use cases that there could be. Because in addition to council notifications, we definitely know that there's a gap for things that are more timely, such as water bans, fire bans, and traffic changes. So we see this as a very useful tool. We want to make sure that it is something that is robust, that supports a variety of different uses. It, of course, is something, too, that is enabled better by a new website. So we'll be sourcing out some solutions later this year, looking at what that might cost and whether it's something that we can identify and pay for within the existing budget, or whether it needs to come forward as a budget request this fall.
Thanks, Mike.
Perfect. Thank you. And then just a quick question. I'm not sure, as we know, the paper has shrunk significantly from what it used to be. And I know there's a lot of folks that still rely on the paper. And, I hope we never lose it. However, it could be a possibility as we are seeing more local news being lost, unfortunately. Have we ever inquired with those who do rely more heavily on the newspaper, what other avenue would work for them should the newspaper not be available?
Ms. Cueva, if you care to comment.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Mayor. Through to Councillor McCook, we have not directly asked this in the survey. We've gotten feedback through the survey at front desk. This is definitely something that possibly could be explored. I will refer back to Joanne if she has any further comments.
Ms. Darjay?
Thank you, Mayor. So no, as Ms. Cueva said, we did not ask that specifically in the survey. There are limited, there you go. There are limited options for us to be able to provide specific those statutory notices. So we want to make sure that they are sources that we can control, as opposed to, say, putting up a paper notification somewhere or something like that. And to be honest, there are very limited options outside of what we've already presented to provide those statutory notices.
Yeah, thank you. And I think maybe just as we do some of this consultation moving forward, it would be good to maybe ask the question of those who do rely on the paper, just, what would be their next best way to get informed? I'm not sure I know what the answer is for them, but maybe it is the email, because I think most people probably have email today, but I'm not sure. But appreciate that, and appreciate the very thorough report, and as Councillor Van Newkirk said, with the raw data as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Telebus, followed by Councillor Penrod. Nathan, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Just, I guess, looking for a little clarity. I mean, I appreciate that whether it's councillors ourselves or administration will never satisfy everyone. But from slide 7 and beyond, it appears that the majority of residents are more dissatisfied with public engagement than satisfied. So I'm just wondering, with our approach to reduce the number of sources of communication to 1 or 2 if applicable, what do we think we're going to gang out of that if we already have majority of residents who are frustrated with the communication side of things and the engagement side of things?
Mr. Dargy? Oh, sorry, Mike. I had the wrong flash on my screen here. Your mic's on, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Councillor Natellenboss. We're actually not proposing to decrease the number of channels. In practice, we will still use the same. In fact, we're increasing it. We're adding Instagram. What this does is just simply in the advertising bylaw, changes the official notification to the website. And there's a few reasons for that, but primarily because if the unfortunate incident where we lose the newspaper, we would be no longer in compliance with our own bylaws. So this is to give us a little more flexibility. We still plan to use all the same means plus Instagram as well.
Thank you. Councillor, follow-up?
Perfect, thank you. So then just looking for clarity on how we would save money, or what's the cost savings that's defined within this presentation?
Thank you for that. Mayor, through you to Councillor Tellenboss. I guess I'm putting words in Ms. Cueva's mouth, but here, I think it is that currently the ads list all of the details of the agenda items for each council meeting, which can often be at least a full page, which is quite costly. I think this would be a much smaller advertisement that has some highlights, but it wouldn't contain the same amount of detail. So, instead of a full page ad twice, running twice for each meeting, it could be a quarter page ad or something like that.
Perfect. And in terms of...
Councillor, sorry. Ms. Dargy, for a follow-up to Mike's comment?
Yeah, and just thank you. Just to add to that, so not just for council meeting agendas, but if we think about our public hearing notices, they're taking up almost a half page to full page ad, which is running thousands of dollars to run those ads. So now we can put in a more reasonably sized ad and direct people to the website for more detail.
Thank you. Councillor?
Perfect, thank you. And again, I appreciate the numbers, the concrete side of things. Are we able to provide somewhat of an estimate as to what potential cost savings we'll see as a result of this change?
Ms. Dargy?
Thank you, Councillor Natellenboss, for that question. That's a little bit difficult to quantify, actually, and I don't know that we did quantify it. Some of the ads that we put in, so for instance, the public hearing notifications, we have no control over those applicants that come in. So they could run from 2 in a year to 30 in a year. So we don't really know how much savings that will be because of that number fluctuates. We could look at the council agendas and how much savings that will be. We could bring that information back because we have to hold a public hearing for this. We can bring that information back for that second reading and public hearing.
Perfect. I would appreciate that, and I'll ask the question again. Does that require a council inquiry? No, perfect, thank you. Just two more questions, if I may. We talk about targeting certain demographics. Can you guys share, can administration please share how we targeted the specific demographics that we've noted in the slides? And I believe it's slide 4.
Ms. Cueva?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So administration noted that we would wish to target underrepresented communities as well as ethnic groups. So some of the engagement that was conducted included going to businesses of the local Southeast Asian community, reaching out to, to put posters up for the survey. Administration also went to, I forgot the name of it, but the Assisted Care Living Center. We provided paper surveys to the residents there, as well as posters directing residents to the website. Administration also connected with our FCSS staff to promote the survey to those of low income or those who may have other difficulties that may be a barrier to filling out the survey. And then lastly, administration also placed some posters in transit and other high traffic areas where individuals may be able to see the survey and fill it out.
Ms. Berezowski, a follow-up comment?
Sure, I just wanted to supplement to that. Thank you, Mayor, to Councillor Tellenboss, too. And if I could draw your attention to attachment 3 with the key findings, we do have the ethnic background broken down. We have yearly household income broken down. For example, 10% of respondents earned between 50 to 80K, 3% earned under 50K. We had South Asian population represented. 6% of respondents identified as South Asian, Southeast Asian, 2%. So I do feel that I think the efforts here were very effective in reaching a very good cross-section of the community.
Thank you. Councillor, one last one? You said you had 2.
Sometimes it's 3, but yeah, no, 2 this time, okay. Last question, I guess, is just in terms of the survey that was taken, I note that we did not use the newspaper, which was, I believe, our 3rd most reliable source to get out information to advertise the survey. Just wondering how come that's the case. And that's slide 4 again, newspaper's not mentioned.
Just checking that, hang on.
Thank you for the question. It's my understanding that we did put an ad out in the newspaper. It may have just been missed on the slide itself.
Okay, perfect. And not a question, just a final statement here. So as mentioned before, I enter all of these first readings without bias, and I feel that the required stakeholders were present and adequately answered my questions. So for that reason, I will support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod. Phil, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor Daniluk, and I'll just join my colleagues in thanking administration for this thorough and thoughtful report. I, like Councillor Van Newkirk, especially really appreciated the sharing the raw data. It meant reading an additional 50 pages or so in our package for the night, but I'm happy to do that. And so if you're a person who took the time to fill out the survey, know that your comments have been read by every councillor here as we prepared for the meeting. It also, echoing Councillor Van Newkirk's point, it's helpful for people to be able to go back and dig into this and see, oh, you know what, actually, just because my suggestion wasn't acted upon doesn't mean it wasn't heard. There's actually the exact opposite suggestion sometimes from another part of the community in the same report, and that has to be managed and balanced somehow. Just to pick up on one idea that I didn't see reflected, I'm also excited to see the possibility of subscribable alerts. I think the expectation socially is shifting to receiving pushed information. I believe that was highlighted in the report as well. That's the way people are choosing to consume data and engage information. So I think we got to meet people where they're at. One piece I picked up on that I've struggled with myself is squinting at the newspaper, trying to make out a street or an area on a tiny little map that's printed. And perhaps the use of a QR code, if we're looking to create a smaller ad in the newspaper, would help people directly use their cell phone or their tablet to go straight to the website, and just make it one step easier for people to do that. So just hope that that could be considered as well. And do we have our newspapers? The other major concern that I saw, that I've heard before, is that not everybody gets the newspaper delivered for a variety of reasons beyond our control. Are there copies of the newspaper available at City Hall? Yes?
Thank you for the question. Yes, there is. We have in the past experienced some difficulties with providing that, especially if the city isn't able to have adequate amounts, then it becomes a challenge to say that we can provide it consistently.
Yeah, and I don't ask here about the public library because I know it's its own entity, but I believe they are also available to the public at even better hours of the day at the public library next door. So thank you. Really appreciate the report.
Thank you, Councillor. See no further members of council willing or asking any questions or comments on this. Again, great report, very, very detailed. Engagement was 255 people, which I think is actually not a bad sampling, but a nice cross-section of our community, as Mike had mentioned. So thank you for your work, administration. I'm looking forward to this bylaw moving to the next phase after first reading, if it's passed tonight, to have the public hearing. Hope to have some members of the public coming to talk about their experience and what they're looking for information. I know we advertise on the social media, we advertise on our website and the newspaper, and I share every single social media post the city does, and other councillors do as well. So we're doing our very best to inform our residents, but it's not perfect by the sounds of some people's responses, but at the same time, we are pushing out everything we possibly can, any way we possibly can. Instagram will help us as well too. So with that, seeing no further comments from members of council or any questions on first reading, with that, I'll ask for the vote on first reading. All in favor? Councillor McCook, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor. That passed unanimously, 6-0 in favor of first reading. Thank you, Council. Next on our agenda is Councillor inquiries, responses, and reports. Seeing none. Next on our agenda is our CAU up. Let me get your microphone going for you there. It's on now, Mike.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
To talk right into it, or you good? You can hear me? You can hear me now?
Yeah, it's on. Your mic's on. Yep, thanks.
All right, as you can see up on the Early Child Care Center was awarded a $50,000 space creation grant, and if you recall, that is being applied to offset the 10 space expansions that we hope to have open by April 1st. CBYC is seeing increased membership. We made some adjustments to the program. It's promoting the youth center to young people that are typically not signed up. So we've seen it increase now to 343 active memberships, the highest since 2016. Also seeing a big uptake in registrations for different planned events. So that's good as we more effectively utilize that space and that service. February 16th, Fortis will be sponsoring a drop-in all drop-in purchases at the BSRC, so except for the climbing wall. Some exciting events coming. We have the Franco flag raising in March. We have volunteer appreciation in April. And we also have, we're integrating the Philip O Award into the Beaumont Days Street Party. So that'll be cool. That's a volunteer award, so let's give it more prominence. And we're pleased to announce that an organization by the name of Northern Lights Fiber is now the new internet service provider for our 10 gig, the broadband network. They've been providing service in the community, and residents are now able to sign up. They're going to do what we were originally promised by Primus over and over again, is to get more involved in our community. So we're really hoping to see the uptake. If anybody who's interested, there's a link there they can visit. So that's Northern Lights Fiber, and that gives you the fastest fiber speeds capability in Western Canada. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Schwartz. Appreciate that. Any questions for our CEO on my screen?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO Schwartz. Next, our agenda, notice of the motion. Are there any notice of motion this evening, Madam Clerk? None? Thank you. Our closed session was on consent agenda. Our last item is adjournment. So with that, we are adjourned at 7:16. Thank you for being here. Enjoy your evening.